The universe of Mad Max has stood the test of time with 3 awesome films from the 80s and even some action-packed titles today. It goes without saying, it's a cultural phenomenon. When it comes to video games, we got next to nothing to bring ourselves into the universe of Mad Max. In 1990, we had Mad Max on the NES, which was okay, I guess. Nothing spectacular, and kind of confusing if I'm being honest. For its time, it was pretty cool as they attempted a semi-open world which wasn't very common in a game of this style. Going from something like this to this, wow, technology, man. After this, we didn't really hear much from the franchise for a long time. Then, in 2015, out came Mad Max Fury Road. This action extravaganza revitalized the series and brought it back to a whole new generation of fans with tons of love. Not soon after, we got a game simply titled Mad Max, an open-world action game from Avalanche Studios. Thanks to the marketing geniuses who decided to release it the same day as Metal Gear Solid 5, just bravo. Bravo! I bet you won't do that again, will you? Unfortunately, the game is considered a commercial failure, with scrap DLC and so much potential to expand on an already underappreciated title. Let's take a look at Mad Max as it stands in 2025. You play as the titular character himself, Max, as you are caught by Scabarus Scrotus? Oh my god, what kind of name is that? I'm sorry, if I got caught in the wasteland and you told me your name is Scrotum, Scrotus, I'm gonna die laughing before you can kill me. Anyway, Max is run off the road by the war boys and you have your car and supplies stolen. Max chases Scrotus and fights him atop the land mover. Max buries a chainsaw deep in Scrotus's head, but somehow he literally survives with a chainsaw jammed in his brain. Because, you know, video games. Kicks you off, and that's where we start our adventure. You find some clothes off a dead wastelander and rescue a dog from certain death. You make friends with the dog hater named Chum Bucket, who is a hunchback, who reminds me of Ephialtes from 300, where you also never really know if you can trust him or if he will betray you. So there's that. I'm watching you, Quasimodo. You'll spend a lot of the game scavenging for scrap parts, water to fill your canteen and replenish health, and even gas cans to fill up your car or use as a bomb. More on that later. With the help of Igor, Bucket of Chum, Chum Bucket, he helps you build a new car that he calls the Magnum Opus. This is Max's new whip that you slowly upgrade piece by piece until you have a rolling death machine. Once you get the Magnum Opus up and running, you'll be thrown into a post-apocalyptic wasteland made of deserts, canyons, and caves to explore. Now, one of the many complaints about this game is how vast and empty the world feels, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? With modern open-world games like Assassin's Creed, for example, I feel like people expect there to be something to do around every corner, and it was intentional to make you feel alone and surrounded by nothing but sand. I'll give it an A+ for nailing the Mad Max feel. The game sort of reminds me of Rage, but in a tighter package with the driving, especially, feeling very responsive and fun. Being a Warner Brothers game, known recently for their Arkham series, the combat is very similar in style, with a counter and combo system. While exploring bases and taking out enemies, you can find ammo for your shotguns, which is very limited in ammo, so it's primarily used for one-shot kills or to deal massive damage to vehicles. You can also find shivs that deal big damage as well. Early on, you meet this stranger named Griffa, who tells you about your fate and yada yada yada, your usual Oracle in a game bullshit. You use these Griffa coins you find throughout the game to upgrade Max's skills and health. If at any point you lose Chum, you can use flares to call him back to your location with your Magnum Opus. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention is that you can upgrade your car on the go, so you don't have to go to a garage, which is really helpful, keeping your game going without having to stop or find the nearest upgrade location. And whatever you do, do not shoot another car's gas tank while sitting too close, because if you do, BAM! Holy crap-oly! On your exploration adventures, you can come across these relics of days before the wasteland, a time that most people in the game have forgotten, like a snowmobile riding on snow. But in real life, it just reminds you of winter, and I hate winter. Driving to work with a hole chiseled out so I can see the road because I'm running late. One thing similar to, say, Assassin's Creed is you use these hot air balloons as a vantage point to observe the surrounding areas to find helpful locations and items. Another cool feature is when you finally get the sniper rifle, and you can use Chum to slowly drive forwards or backwards so you can take out enemies from afar, just like you hitting the subscribe button from across the room, because if you can, you're a real Chad or Chadette, whichever you prefer. Every subscription helps out the algorithm, so please hit that button. The main premise is to take out the surrounding factions from each zone, freeing up the wasteland across several different regions from each of the main groups like the Buzzards and the Roadkill. The primary focus is to make your way into Gastown, take down Scrotus and his minions, get your car back, and whoop some ass. Now, I just wanted to give a brief overview of the game, primarily what to expect from this game and what you'll spend most of your time doing. After many hours and even a platinum trophy from back in the day from yours truly, the game is loads of fun and an awesome depiction of the Mad Max universe, making you feel like a badass taking down factions and ramming cars like a fat guy in a mosh pit. Now, I remember seeing a little marketing for this game back before it came out, but it wasn't as prevalent as many other titles coming out at the time. From my research, some people seem to really like the game, and others tend to dislike its repetitive and empty nature. So, let's take a dive into the development for this game and how well the game was received. Originally mentioned in 2008 by the franchise creator, George Miller, it was meant to be a tie-in with the animated film that in turn became Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. The film's production was put on the back burner to give adequate production time for the new game. A Mad Max Fury Road tie-in video game was in development by Interplay Entertainment, but was scrapped when Electronic Arts acquired the franchise's video game rights for $20 million. Avalanche Studio revealed that they started work on the title back in 2013. Avalanche's founder and CEO Christopher Sundberg said that Miller in Barlog's project was not the Mad Max game announced by Avalanche, though Barlog briefly worked on a Mad Max game while working at Avalanche. The game was not intended to be a tie-in for a Mad Max Fury Road, but a standalone game with its own story. This decision was made because of the game's publisher, Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment, believed that a standalone game was more beneficial to players than a play-the-movie game after the success of its Batman Arkham series. It was revealed in 2024 that, despite its experience working on an open-world title in the past, they were forced to make Mad Max a linear experience early in development. Like the Just Cause series, the developer aimed to give players autonomy by providing tools to create their own events. The game world is scaled accordingly to gameplay density and frequency. The development team emphasized creating a world with choices and distractions rather than focus on size. On February 14, 2013, a blurry screenshot was released by Avalanche's founder, Christopher Sundberg. The game was announced at E3 2013 at Sony's press conference with a scheduled 2014 release for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Windows, Xbox 360, and Xbox One. In April of 2014, Avalanche announced the title's delayed to the following year. Mad Max was released on September 1st, 2015 for PS4, Xbox One, and Windows. It was announced on May 3rd, 2015 that the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions had been cancelled due to hardware restrictions. Mad Max received mixed or average scores from critics and fans alike. George Miller said in 2024 in an interview that the game wasn't good as how he wanted it to be. Brandon Tyrell of IGN found the story surprising and genuine, despite most of the action occurring later in the game. Tyrell wrote that the characters had different personalities and distinct qualities and considered them the true star of the game. Leon Hurley of GamesRadar found the overall story weak and barely existing for the majority of the game, but thought that the game's climax was exciting. Matt Burtz of Game Informer also criticized the story, calling it thin and light, and called the voice actor's performance uneven. Mad Max's world design received generally positive reviews. According to Brendan Tyrell, it captured the film's savage tone, and the game's sandbox was a gorgeous setting for players to explore. Martin Robinson of Eurogamer compared its scale favorably to Avalanche's previous Just Cause game series, and that Avalanche has successfully combined the Mad Max universe with an open-world game design. There was overall praise for the vehicle combat in the game, calling it unique and fitting for the playstyle. Chris Carter of Destructoid wrote that the game brought nothing new to the genre, and its quests and features were too similar to typical Ubisoft open-world design. Mad Max was the second best-selling game in the UK in the first week of its release on the United Kingdom software retail chart, only behind Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, which was released the same day. Former Avalanche CEO Christopher Sundberg revealed in 2024 that Warner Brothers blamed us for the bad sales, and that canceled DLC was just sitting there waiting to be released. Now, could you imagine what the DLC could have brought to the game? Sundberg attributed the game's commercial underperformance to being released on the same day as Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, and his attempts at convincing Warner Brothers to move the game's release date were unsuccessful. I feel like that he was onto something, but that could just be me. Could have things turned out differently if they changed the release date even just a day later? Who knows? The game is technically a commercial failure, selling only 3 million copies worldwide, but many people share love for this game today. Makes you wish that the game had a sequel or even a remake for players to enjoy all over again. Hell, even some DLC at this point would be enough for me to hop back into the game once again. The game was definitely a labor of love for the franchise, and it's a shame that it didn't sell as well as it could have. What do you think? Should they have marketed better or moved the release date? How do you feel about this game? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next video. Pixels out.